So that was a hip behind my knee is being pulsed. That's a pulse on the knee.
But it's worth remembering a classic Nazi technique, which can be described as.
So I'm listening to David Icke,
the lie,
and I'll post the link. So my left ear is being pulsed right now.
Oh, they might lie a bit, but they wouldn't lie that
much. That's the 19.
And they are. Now, to summarize where I'm going with this today, I'm going to quote Professor Dr. Sucharit Bhakdi, a highly acclaimed infectious medicine specialist in Germany, who has said,
that's 31 is a hit on the arm.
And mass house arrest around the world that's come from it. He said this about the lockdowns: they are grotesque, absurd, and very dangerous. All these measures are leading to self-destruction and collective suicide because of nothing but a spook. So I want to emphasize, before I get into this, that I've not sat here pulling what I'm going to say out of the ether. I am quoting doctors, experts, specialists in all these different areas that relate to this whole arena of virus. And although they don't make it into the mainstream media, for obvious reasons, they are demolishing the narrative, they do speak out when they have the opportunity. And this video should be watched in conjunction with another that I'm putting the link on YouTube underneath this video, and on my website the video will be underneath this one. And this is the headline: German journalist goes to hospital, quote, teeming with coronavirus patients, and finds no one there. Nobody, empty. And in that same video, you'll see a list of acclaimed and highly qualified doctors and specialists in their field, lung disease, etc., who demolish the official story of some, quote, deadly virus called COVID-19. So what I'm saying today is not something that I've pulled out of the ether. It's what highly qualified specialist people who don't get into the mainstream media are saying. And one of these doctors said, there is no new virus. There is just a new test, which is given the illusion of a virus that is deadly to humans. So, a friend of mine, and by the way, I did a video that's headed Sanity Amid the Madness, in which I explained in some detail how this scam has been perpetrated. And it's to do with manipulating the numbers and figures and the nature of what those figures are supposed to tell us. And the friend of mine, who's sent me a link on the government website a few days ago, which said that as of March 19th, the COVID-19 was no longer designated as a infectious disease of consequence. Downgraded. A matter of days later, Britain was locked down and people put under house arrest because this virus that the British government had officially downgraded was so dangerous. And how all this came about and what's actually going on will become clear as we proceed. Now, the page on the government website that the journalist sent me, as we obviously posted it and put it on social media, etc., it's gone all over the social media. People are sending it back to me. Have you seen this? And the same.
So it went from 114/72 to 108/69 to 114/69.
The death figures from all causes in this very period that this coronavirus is supposed to be creating mayhem, and compared them with the death figures from the same weeks last year. And although at the last reports I saw, more than 1,000 people are supposed to have died from coronavirus. By the way, I'm not saying they didn't die. I'm saying what of, and I'll explain what I mean by that as we go along. So in 2019, in this same period of weeks that we've gone through at the present time, 11,431 people died in Britain of all causes. And in these weeks,
that's my hand.
11,600 have died. So where is this leap in numbers that you would expect? Well, it's not there. So why is it not there? And those figures, by the way, are from Public Health England. Well, in the video that I posted last Friday,
that's my hand now.
I
take the hand away.
Quoted a United States scientist. If you watch that video, you'll
see the
see
hand is tagged at a very high power.
Who was
and there's a lot of electricity in my hand and my body.
Is being played.
Because I've been pulsed all night and all day.
But I am going to pick out key points because it's so important in connecting the dots that I'm also going to lead to in this video.
Take the hand away and keep it close.
United States.
Take the hand completely away.
I work in the healthcare field.
Put the hand back.
Here's the problem. We are testing people for any strain of coronavirus. Let that sink in. Hold that thought. Not specifically COVID-19. There are no reliable tests for specific COVID-19 viruses or virus. There are no reliable agencies or media outlets for reporting numbers of actual COVID-19 virus cases. This needs to be addressed first and foremost. Every action and reaction to COVID-19 is based on totally flawed data, and we simply cannot make accurate assessments. On that basis, the world economy and billions of livelihoods have been
so did you notice
and
the pattern, up and down, up and down, up and down?
are under house arrest.
You notice the pulsing is up and down, up and down, up and down as well.
On the basis of what he's just described not being the case. On the basis of we're tested for COVID-19 and this is what we found. But there's no specific test for COVID-19. They are testing, he says, for coronaviruses. Now, there are loads and loads of coronaviruses of different kinds. And
that's my hand.
We have viruses inside us by the legion. And they never trouble us. Of course, they never get to that point of impact on the body where we get sick. So almost everyone who's tested for coronavirus of some kind is going to be positive.
Hand.
In some way.
The neck is being hit.
He goes on.
Did you hear what he just said?
It's the fact,
David Icke,
that there is
he
no
said everybody's going to be testing positive. Everybody.
This is why you're hearing, he said, that most people with COVID-19 are showing nothing more than cold, flu-like symptoms. And the reason for that, he says, is because most coronavirus strains are nothing more than cold,
so that's the hand.
Symptoms. They are testing people for coronavirus, not COVID-19 specifically.
Notice he didn't say he didn't say there was no virus such as the COVID-19. He said the test numbers are being played with. He didn't deny that there is COVID-19. So it's not a hoax.
Are you getting the scam yet?
COVID-19 is not a hoax. It's real. But what he's saying is the numbers are being played with.
He talks about the PCR test. This is the test. Oh, we want more testing.
That's the
we
hand.
Want more testing. We want home kits. We want this. We want all that. This is what the PCR test is, he says. PCR basically takes a sample of your cells and amplifies any DNA to look for viral sequences, i.e., bits of non-human DNA that seem to match parts of a known viral genome. The problem is, he says, the TET is known not to work. So all these figures of cases, and I'll come to.
So I'm checking right here. There's no activity associated with these numbers.
On a test, and often just on symptoms, and the symptoms are very much like loads of other coronaviruses and influenza. He goes on. The Mickey Mouse, as he calls them, test kits are being sent out to hospitals at best. They tell analysts you have some viral DNA in your cells, which most of us do, he says, most of the time. You are going to sequence is related to a specific type of virus, say the huge family of coronavirus, not specifically COVID-19. But that's all. The idea that these kits can isolate a specific virus like COVID-19, he says, is nonsense. And that's not even getting into the other issue, he points out, what he calls viral load. The test is useless, he says, at telling you how much virus you may have. So I've got coronavirus, not specific COVID-19, but you've got coronavirus. We all have, basically, at levels that never affect us. The point he's making here is that the test, the level of the virus that determines if you are sick or not if you have it in some form, which almost everyone has. He says the test is therefore useless at telling you how much virus you may have, and that's the only question that really matters when it comes to diagnosing illness. Everyone will have a few viruses kicking around in their system at any time. Most will not cause illness because their quantities are too small. But it will still show in the test. For a virus to sicken you, you need a lot of it, a massive amount of it. But the PCR test does not test viral load, how much virus you have, and therefore cannot determine if the osteogenesis is present in sufficient quantities to sicken you. This is why the vast majority, getting bigger all the time as a ratio, who have tested positive for coronavirus have very mild or no. See all these celebrities. Oh, I've got coronavirus. Oh, you're so brave. Symptoms have you got? Oh, I haven't got any. If you feel sick, this scientist says, and you get a PCR test, any random virus DNA might be identified even if they aren't at all involved in your sickness, which leads to false diagnosis, which we are drowning in. And he goes on, and coronaviruses are incredibly common. A large percentage of the world population will have COVID DNA in them in small quantities, even if they are perfectly well or sick with some other pathogen. I'll come to the significance of that as we go on. He asks, do you see where this is going yet? Anyone with half a brain cell on active duty will absolutely see where this is going. If you want to create a totally false panic about a totally false pandemic, he says, pick a coronavirus for the very reasons that he has described. And he says, as you test more and more people, not for COVID-19, but for coronaviruses, which almost everyone has, you're going to have more and more cases. And he goes on. Before long, you have your pandemic. And all you've done is use a simple test kit trick to convert the worst flu and pneumonia cases into something new that doesn't actually exist. What did that German expert in this arena say? That all this is happening because of a spook. And so are those other people, doctors and specialists on the video. That's with this. Now just run the same scan, he says, in other countries, making sure to keep the fear message running high, right? So that people will feel panicky and less able to think critically. Your only problem is going to be due to the fact there is no actual new deadly pathogen, but just regular sick people, redesignated. You are mislabeling your case numbers and especially your deaths. I know, I'll come to that as well. It's an extraordinary story. Stay with me. And your deaths are going to be way too low, because it's not an actual deadly new pathogen, are going to be way too low for the real new pandemic to have any credibility in terms of death numbers, death ratios. But he says, you can stop people pointing this out in several ways. First of all, you can abuse them and censor them. With help from the population, not all the population, a lot of people have sussed this, but this is not what they're telling them. But lots of the human population, they don't have to be, but they've chosen to be. They're little more than software programs. I call them press enter people. Put the data in. Oh, you're all going to die. Press enter. Ah! And they would insist on silencing those who sussed it. Anyway, another way that you can hide the fact that your deadly pathogen is not producing enough dead people to justify that title. He says, you can claim this is just the beginning and more deaths are imminent. Have you noticed that? Oh no, I know, not too many have died now, but oh dear, it's going to be terrible.
So that was a scan on the chest at 26.
In a minute.
And a hit on the arm.
As an excuse to quarantine everyone.
The back of the neck is being hit, and that's the 21.
Quarantine prevented the expected millions of dead. Spot on. And I'll give you some more evidence for that. From a British and even wider than British point of view. So, you say that vast numbers of people are going to die, and that justifies your lockdown as clueless politicians just believe the bloody advisors. And what's their agenda? No one seems to be asking. Well, I am, but the mainstream media doesn't. And that leads to lockdown on the vast numbers of people who are going to die. And when they don't die, and never were going to, for reasons explained here and more later, you say, well, they didn't die because of the lockdown. And then they say, so every time we have another pandemic like this, like any time we can set it up, we're going to have to lock down again. This is the game. So when you're talking about flu-like symptoms, which we're talking about this COVID-19.
That was a hit on the arm?
Flu-like symptoms. In 2017, 2018, 45 million people in America went down with the flu. Between 60 and 80,000 died. That's
a hit on the back of the neck?
Flu.
That 26?
Extreme flu-like symptoms in terms of people who die. Flu in the US in this so-called flu season has got to the point of between 20 and 40,000 cases 30 and between 20 and 40,000 deaths. 36 million cases. Half needing medical care, and 370,000 have needed to be admitted to hospital. Now compare that with the so-called coronavirus, and you see a dramatic difference. But it's going to get much worse unless we lock everyone down. And here's more confirmation of what that scientist said. And this is from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the United States, where they're talking about this coronavirus test, this PCR. Quote, positive test results are indicative of active infection with 2019 nCoV. Others say that's true. But do not rule out bacterial infection or co-infection with other viruses. The agent detected may not be the definite cause of disease. Laboratories within the United States and its territories are required to report all positive results to the appropriate public health authorities. So it's coronavirus, and the numbers fly up. So key thing here is the agent detected, in this case the coronavirus, may not be the definite cause of disease. But what's happening is that coronavirus is going on the death certificate. This is how it's working. 99%, this is official Italian government health service figures. 99% of those that have died from alleged coronavirus, COVID-19, have had 1, 2, 3, or more other health conditions, which has obviously compromised their immune system massively. So they have these other conditions, many times life-threatening. You've had people with late cancers who've been tested and found to have coronavirus. And when they've died of cancer, coronavirus goes on the death certificate, so the numbers go up. And so when you have a situation where you're testing people with other conditions, often very serious conditions, and when they die, you're saying it's coronavirus because they tested for it. But hold on a minute. You didn't know how much of that virus was in that person's body. Thus, you have no idea if that's what they died of when they've got all these other conditions. This is how it's working. This is where the figures are coming from. This is how they're being fiddled. For instance, in Italy, since this flu season started in October 2019, there have been more than 3 million cases in Italy of flu. And Lombardy, we should not forget, which is the kind of epicenter in Italy of this, has the far and away, every year, the biggest death rate from all data. 2018 had 99,500. How much of that? The next region was in that, under that, Lazio had 57,000 person's body. Thus, you have no idea. These things I don't have to all these other conditions to get any idea what is actually happening. And what that scientist was saying about everyone basically has these coronaviruses in levels that can affect you. And that's becoming clearer and clearer as the testing
So after
increases,
this blood pressure measurement, I'm going to
cases
stop
coming
streaming.
to light. Cases
You can check out David Icke on the link I'm going to post.
and therefore they're going to test for it, positive for it. And there was a study last week published by Oxford University that was pointing out that this situation has been circulating since at least at the latest January, early January. And they'll find that
So the pressure went back up.
Why? Because it's the flu
So
season.
I'm going to end there. So just so you see the pattern.
Cases that come to light through this
So it
testing,
went from
the smaller
114
the death rate
over
ratio
72,
becomes.
108,
You need two
114,
figures to
108,
establish
105,
death
108,
rate.
103,
One
105,
is the
115.
number of people who died, but then again, died from what? Given the nature of this test.
So that's the top number.
But the other figure to get the death rate is how many have actually got it. And so the more and more people are seen to have testing positive, the death rate ratio falls and falls and falls.